Gosh, I love movies. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the ninth film from Quentin Tarantino, and this movie stars a faded television actor and his stunt double played by Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, respectively, who strive to achieve fame and success in the film industry during the final years of Hollywood's golden age in 1969 LA. So yeah, the ninth film from Quentin Tarantino. We are striving towards that 10th film that is going to be supposedly his final. I don't believe that myself, but we will cross that bridge when we get to it. Talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I was really looking forward to this movie because I really like the idea of Quentin Tarantino essentially writing a love letter to old school Hollywood in the form of this movie. I was really looking forward to it, and even though I've not seen many of Tarantino's movies myself, I've only really seen a few of them, some of the more recent ones, and I've also seen Reservoir Dogs. I'm going to go and revisit quite a lot of them now after this movie, but I really was looking forward to see how Tarantino is going to tackle not only the old school Hollywood style, but also the Manson story that this movie was going to be incorporating in it. And in the end, I feel Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a real special cinematic experience for 2019. Starting off with the positives, for one, the performances in this movie are some of the best I've seen all year. Whether you're talking about Leonardo DiCaprio as Rick Dalton, that is one incredible actor we have right there. I mean, we all know what Leonardo DiCaprio can do, and just seeing him just completely stretch his acting muscles here is so entertaining to watch. There are a couple of scenes in particular where you really get to see how fantastic of an actor Leo truly is. Whether you're talking about the freak out scene that you would have seen in the trailer, or there's another scene in particular where he's actually acting on screen, as in acting in a movie on screen. It's just tremendous, and you're absolutely enthralled by his performance, and it just proves what Leonardo DiCaprio, it proves why he won that Oscar. He's such a good actor. And also, I feel like, more importantly, Brad Pitt in this movie as Cliff Booth is so unprecedented. This is a role we've never seen Brad Pitt kind of do before. I genuinely believe this is Brad Pitt's best performance of his career. Now, I have been told that his performance in Inglourious Basterds is very, very good as well. I need to go check that movie out myself. But seeing him as Cliff Booth in this movie, not only is Cliff himself just an incredibly interesting, incredibly cool character, but having Brad Pitt play him in such a way with such nuance was really entertaining to watch, and I loved seeing every little aspect of his character. He was so entertaining, so interesting, and again, them two as a foil. This movie is really about friendship, and them foiled together. It was just very entertaining to watch. Mix that with the script, which I'll get to later. It just created a nice bond between the two and a nice bit of chemistry between the two, which really added a lot more fuel to the fire. And the story of this movie, or lack thereof, is kind of a very interesting way of telling the movie, because this film doesn't have a rudimentary plot like you would typically expect in a lot of movies. This film is basically about two guys just working their way through their lives in Hollywood. And it's not a particular plot. There isn't really a story per se. It's a lot more of just a character drama or a character study or characters study, where you get to see just these two guys going through their lives, how they're reacting to it, how they're acting, and it's very interesting to watch. It's something that could come across as boring, and for some people, it probably will be boring. And if you think the movie's boring, I completely understand. But for me, I found the movie to be so engrossing because these characters in particular of Rick and Cliff are so interesting and so intriguing. You just want to spend time with them. You want to see what they're going to do next. And if that leads us just to following their lives, that's perfectly fine by me. And the dialogue in this movie is perfect. It's so well written. I feel like Tarantino has really knocked it out of the park with this one. It's so on point. It's so witty. It's very funny. This is a very funny movie, and I feel like that this script in particular really nails home the tone and style that this movie is going for, especially because this is really like I said, a love letter to 1960s Hollywood. Seeing that script really implement those elements, but also being kind of self-aware and also being kind of referential on itself. It's very entertaining to see where the script goes, where it takes us, and also what kind of dialogue it gives the characters. And it just, again, adds so much more to the characters, adds so much more substance, so much more depth, and again, it just gets you even more engrossed in the movie, the characters, and its world. And this film is beautifully shot as well. The cinematography here is just completely on display. I loved all the shots here. It's just a beautifully composed movie when you look at all the shots that are brought together for the film. It's a really nice looking movie. It's very clean, it's very crisp, and a lot of that comes through the cinematography, and I really loved all of that too. Being transported back into the 60s for this film is incredibly well recreated. You actually uncover if you look into the production of the movie, none of it is CGI. All of it is actually recreated with physical sets. They actually shut down elements of Hollywood and LA to actually recreate the 1960s Hollywood era, and that is incredibly impressive when you look at the movie itself, because while there are quite a lot of self-indulgent shots of Cliff Booth just driving around, and for some may find that a bit boring, unnecessary, and to be honest, yeah, it is. But when you look at just how impressive the world is, given the fact that it's all practical, it adds a lot more to it, and actually adds a lot more appreciation to it once you learn that fact. Now, one thing that may put a lot of people off this movie is the fact that it is nearly 3 hours long. And while, yes, it is nearly 3 hours long, what I have to say about the film is that it's incredibly well paced. I was never bored for 1 second watching this movie. And that is a big statement for a movie that is nearly 3 hours long. Like I say, this movie has a similar thing to Avengers Endgame, where that movie is over 3 hours long, and that movie is not boring at all in the slightest. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood follows a similar trait. This has very good pacing, it's incredibly entertaining all the way through, you're constantly on your toes as to where the movie's going to go, what the characters are going to do, and when you look at that, it just keeps you entertained the entire way through. And like I say, for this entire near 3 hour runtime, I was never bored. And this film is filled with a beautiful soundtrack. I mean, if you just look at the trailers for this movie, you get a really good idea of those songs, and both of those songs that are used in the trailer are actually in the movie as well, which I really appreciate. But also just all the songs, they just, again, add to the era, they add to the fame, they just add to the vibe, and it really adds to the overall theme and feeling of the movie. And of course, this movie, this review is going to feature no spoilers whatsoever, but what I will say is, I was a little bit worried about the Mansons area of this movie. I was a bit scared about how Tarantino was going to handle that. But I have to say, I actually love what they did with it in the end. I actually really enjoy that story in here and how they played it. It's very, very unexpected, but I definitely enjoyed what it was. It could have gone very wrong very quickly, but luckily it was played in a very strong way. Honestly, I really have no negatives for this movie, which is really insane. I mean, we may have more negatives the more times I see it and, the more I think about it, but as of right now, it's been a few days since I've seen the movie, and I still can't really think of any major negatives. So for me, I feel like that this movie is one of the best films of 2019, and I'm going to give it a critical score of 9 out of 10. Now, moving over to the entertainment side of this review, this is kind of an interesting one, because Tarantino, as a director, is very, very hit or miss with people. Very, very much an acquired taste as a director. You either like his movies or you don't. At least that's the case for most people. There are some people who like some and not others, but a lot of people, you either like his movies or you don't. For me, I feel like, recommending this movie, either give it a watch or give it a miss. I definitely feel like you should give this movie a watch, even if you're not sure about it, because you might end up enjoying it. You might end up getting swept up in it. I didn't expect to like this movie as much as I did. I thought I was going to like it, but I didn't expect to love it. So I feel like that alone gives you a good reason to maybe just go and try the movie, give it a watch yourself, see how you feel about it, because in the end of the day, although, like I say, even if you're not a fan of Tarantino, this movie's very different to a lot of his movies from what I hear, and very different to the one that I've seen. So I feel like, with that fact, you could take that and go watch the movie and just see how you feel about it, because it could be a very, very entertaining movie for you, but it also could be a very boring movie. That's the complete honest truth about it. So overall, I'd say give this movie a watch, see how you feel about it, and in the end, you might find a movie that you really love. Overall, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was a movie that I really loved. This is a film I did not expect to love, but I came up adoring. I think that this film is just a real treasure. It's one of the best films of the year for sure. This is definitely a real knockout of the park for Tarantino. It's a love letter to 1960s Hollywood with incredible performances. Some of the best performances of the year from Leo and also from Brad. And I just feel like the cinematography, the world, the music, the world building, it's all here in one big beautiful package. And again, if you're a fan of movies, if you love film, this is a movie that you will really appreciate. And again, even if you're someone who typically doesn't enjoy Tarantino movies, I'd still say go check this one out just to see how you feel about it, because it's a very, very different experience than what I was expecting. And overall, this is definitely one of the best films of 2019. So have you guys seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? If you have, make sure to let me know all your thoughts about it in the comment section down below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let's have a conversation about this movie in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, if you want to see more movie reviews and movie related videos like this, be sure to subscribe, and I hope to see you guys again next time.